Jetzt ist Sam da.
Dann sag immer Hallo.
Hallo Sam.
Good morning.
Soll ich jetzt weiter?
Heiner,
Heiner ist,
your
Yes.
microphone appears muted. Are you far from your microphone?
Heiner, wir können dich gar nicht hören im Moment.
Hello? Can you hear me?
You appear like you're far away from your microphone. Do you have the right microphone selected, Heiner?
It looks like another problem I had is, can you hear the sound?
Yeah, your audio is still, it sounds like only the bass is coming through. Anyway, Farah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Sam. Hi.
Where are you? What time zone? And what?
I'm in Berlin.
Ah, okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Eric,
Eric.
I'll go.
Yeah, um, finishing up a choir rehearsal, so I'll be listening for a while.
Okay. And off the camera, we have Barry and Eugen. Eugen Ertringer, welcome. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Okay, Jack. Good morning, Jack. Glad you made it off the helicopter safely.
Yeah, no, it was really quite a ride.
I can imagine.
I took Pete Kaminsky with me.
Eugen, I think you and I have not met yet, have we? Good to see.
Long time ago, I think. Sorry, my microphone just was on mute. Then you mentioned me. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's a long time ago.
There is
I think we met.
Heiner. Wie ist dein Audio? No. Hey, Stacy.
Hello.
Good to hear about your event yesterday also, after this.
Sure, I'd love to. I'm going to stay off camera now because I look like a wet rat, but nice to see you, Eugene. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Indeed, I did. Indeed. I actually saw your name coming on Facebook a few days ago after a long while.
Oh, okay. Didn't mean to interrupt. Continue, everybody.
We're just gathering here. I don't think we've actually started yet. Heiner was troubleshooting some audio problems. Hey, Heiner, if you're going to use that background, your face is going to look partly masked. Just FYI. That may
We
be
have a
intentional.
Brady Bunch.
He's experiencing some transparency problems.
We want to be transparent. Well,
It's about Transparency International. It's an NGO.
okay. All right, Heiner, do you feel like we have enough to get going? Would we like to start, or would you like to wait for a few
Well,
more?
I think you should introduce also Farah and Eugen, and maybe I add something to that, because I think it's very good that we have some more people. And then I explain why my interviewer, I prepared a little 20 minutes interview with me to be recorded by Sam, is not taking place. We have done a rehearsal yesterday and it's all saved, but she is in Nigeria and cannot make it. This is modern times. This is life.
So how would you like to handle this then? Because I don't think I have the video. She has the video. Has it
I
been?
have the video and I send it to her, and she is a filmmaker. So she will have no problems in well, I'm still in the background mode here.
Yeah.
So she will have no problem to make a final cut.
So Heiner, if not the actual interview, how would you like to conduct this session right here?
I
Okay.
know it since 2 days, and I have prepared, and I informed Farah and Eugen. Eugen was as my birthday in Corona times when I became 70. You have met there before. And I told my friends, our two new guests here, the others are not nearly permanent guests, that I will do what really rocked my lives the last 2, 3 weeks. And as we have on Tuesday, the American Earth Day, and I celebrated 50 years Equinox Earth Day, 20th of March, that I told them, and Eugen has done something very much in that field on the rights of nature. And Farah was ringing with me the peace bell, and she met the original founder who did it 55 years, John McConnell. So I have done this rehearsal already, but I have prepared a few slides and give you a summary that you don't have to have the AI transcription, but really what happened, what is the history of it, what could it mean for the future, and what are the challenges. So I was just listening to Al Jazeera, and Mrs. May discussed 80 years UN, and she wants to make another UN organization for slavery. They call it kidnapping women and children. So anyway, a lot of things is going on around the Earth Days, and I've prepared slides. But before, I think Eugen and Farah should briefly introduce themselves, and maybe also the others say a little bit who they are. And then maybe we start with the issues we had last sessions with Sean on integrating media, symbol systems, sign systems, belief systems, all this what Earth Day and the Earth as a whole, the different cultures, the different languages, the different ways to annotate. You can do it alphanumeric, like the early AI was able, and now it includes the modern media Gutenberg galaxies, or how you want to call it. So we have very top experts here. I want to shut up and try to find my slides. And meanwhile, it would be very good to see who is in the room.
So Heiner, thanks for that introduction. Let me at least do a quick explanation of this session here for Farah and Eugen. There are some of us, including Heiner, including Stacy, including several who are not here, who've been meeting on weekends since the middle of 2017. So it's been approximately 8 years, okay? And we used to do Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Now it's only Saturdays and Sundays. We go from Pacific time, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And it has actually taken a number of different charters, okay? Initially, it was because we responded to a request for proposal from a nonprofit in Sweden called the Global Challenges Foundation. Tammy Lee Meyer and I submitted a proposal, and the proposal was basically saying we need to learn how to listen to each other, and more importantly, learn how to navigate misunderstandings, disappointments, and disagreements. So these sessions have been going on for 8 years, as I say, really with multiple different looks at that particular question. Now, that is my framing. Other people can come with different framing, but it used to be that we wanted to create a project, then we wanted to just, create technology, then we wanted to show how collaboration could scale. But until we learn how to do that well, and primarily learn how to navigate disagreements, navigate misunderstandings, navigate language issues, ego issues, emotion issues, time issues, we are nowhere close to spreading anything. We're mostly just learning why that doesn't work. So we're understanding why scalable collaboration does not work, okay? You could look at that framing. So anyway, that's what we've been doing approximately for about 8 years. And so Heiner used to be part of that, but that has changed in the last 2 or 3 years to something called collaborology studying, okay? The collaborology study group. And collaborology is specifically about why collaboration does not scale successfully, okay? And so the way we also frame that one is we look at things in a critical manner. We look at them from a reasonable, scientific, mathematical, logical, model-based, systems-based manner. And Barry has been instrumental in making sure that we stay on track with that. And I do as well, okay? And so we want to make sure that people who are tool builders, people who are understanding collaborology, people who are trying to collaborate, really get that sort of discussion going. And I have to admit, it's controversial at times, okay? People disagree about why collaboration doesn't work, or people disagree about why we should be doing collaboration or should not be doing collaboration. So that went a lot longer than I had hoped. But anyway, I wanted to let you know that that's the context in which these sessions, Saturdays and Sundays, 8 a.m. Pacific to 10 a.m. Pacific, take place, okay? So I'll let each of the people introduce themselves, including, of course, Farah and Eugen. But that's my introduction right now, okay? I've said nothing about myself, only about this particular greeting. If there's opportunity, I'll go last. Over. Shall we go in terms of time? Stacy, you're one of the oldest people, not oldest, longest tenured. I apologize. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm here in New York. Well, actually, I'm in North Carolina at the moment, but I live in New York. As Sam said, I came in when the group first started announcing on Facebook that they would have Zoom calls. So I came in because they were one of the calls they had was about unblocking, and that was of interest to me. And I mostly stayed very quiet because I had no clue what was going on. So everything that Sam just explained, I didn't find out for quite a while. During that time, I introduced Barry Court, who I had gotten to know on Facebook, into this group. And many times I've had to encourage him to stay because there were other people that were making that difficult. I know Eric from a subgroup that started off of this, and I sometimes see him in other things I'm involved in. Mostly when I come here now, I'm visiting old friends. So this is the same thing, if like I had some time and I like to be here and I like to check in and say what I'm doing, because my hope is that there will be times in the future where I'll call on different people here to let them know that somebody else is doing something that they're collaborating on. So I'm interested in connecting people. And when I can give a good idea or a suggestion or any kind of input, I hope to, this is where I feel most comfortable. This is a place where I can raise my voice and yell at somebody because I feel like we have a close enough relationship to get through that. Yeah, so I basically know everybody here. There are people that were in the original group, like Doug Breitbart, that I have a very close affiliation to, and I'm in a number of different groups with him. Yesterday, I had I won't go into that now, but I'll just say, Sam, you asked me to mention it. But yesterday, I had the opportunity to meet up with somebody from another group I'm in, Society 2045, which Doug is also a part of. And that was wonderful because we attended a protest together. I got to meet somebody in real life that I always wanted to meet. I knew her story, I knew how I resonated with her, but she didn't know me. So basically, I'm living my life trying to integrate my online activities with my real world activities and helping to spread ideas and connect people. Thank you. Over.
Barry?
Okay. I may be the oldest person here. I think Jack and I are about the same age. I'm a retired systems scientist, systems engineer, network planner, and science educator. And my depth is in systems thinking and model-based reasoning.
Thank you, Barry. Let's see who's actually, you know, when I said Stacy goes back with GCC the longest, I actually go back even longer with Jack, even all the way back to about 2008, I think, but not in a GCC context. Jack, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, actually, Sam, I remember when you started this group, and I may or may not have joined one or two sessions. So I was in the email circle that was getting it started. Um, at any rate, I basically got my I got who I am in modern terms by meeting Doug Engelbart um, and learning, getting a much clearer picture of what we need to do. That's what attracts me to this group. Over.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Mr. Eric Rangel, unless you're otherwise occupied.
No, I'm fine. Hi, everybody. So, yeah, I live in Delaware, and I have retired after 30 years in application development and IT. So I'm refocusing and collaborating with Sam on how we could take the ideas of Doug Engelbart's research forward. So, yeah, I'm a more technical side, but interested in the human side as well.
Thank you. Sean?
I guess it could be said that I'm a species scale cognition activist and transdisciplinary researcher in spanning computer science, um, semantics, psychology, sociology, uh, library science, and what I'm working on is technology to support species scale cognitive activity.
Awesome. And I don't know the temporal order, but let's just go in order of appearance for today. Farah, would you like to go next?
Maybe I jump in first.
Okay, Heiner, you can go
You
ahead.
see, I was with Tammy and Fleming Punch and doing something, and then Sam joined about global challenges. There was a UN conference, and this UN conference had a big foundation in Sweden, and they had lots of money. And so that came together. I followed since then, and I did Zoom conferences with Cisco since 96 or since 96. So I followed up this group, but I was not aware that you are now collaborology. I thought you're still global challenges. The guests I invited are more the bigger picture. But these bigger pictures all come together with my little presentation later on Earth Day and Earth Day equinox since 55 years, or even with the UN and the Peace Bell since the foundation, nearly 80 years now. So I have invited three people here, which one is my colleague Farah. She will introduce herself later. She did with me this Peace Bell project and is my colleague since the first climate summit and the International Peace University since mid-90s. And Farah was with the International Peace University when it was founded directly after the wall came down. The second is Eugen. Eugen was a colleague here in computing and Earth and governance in Potsdam, close to Berlin. He has his own thing on looking into the rights of nature. And then I have Christian Kirsch here. He is the founder of the Delphi Games. Delphi is something like Olympic Games, and it's a season where we have to bring all our cosmologies, our science systems, our religions, all our knowledge, the exact and the fine arts together. And Christian conceived this idea, being in Delphi, in Greece, to really see there is a need for the exact and the fine arts coming together. And he really, we just celebrated 30 years Delphi Games. And it was also in the time when the first climate summit was taking place and the Peace University was celebrating in Berlin when the wall came down with all the celebrities, Dalai Lama, Gorbachev, Ustinov, Menuhin, and even women you wouldn't believe. So it was not a club just for boys. And so this was a very transformational time in the early mid-90s. And that connects me to Christian. And I think now we are done, yes. So maybe you three say a little bit, and then I do my 10 minutes, 15 minutes maximum pitch. And it might be that at that time also Jörg Altekruse, a filmmaker who is with me doing this youth projects and International Climate Summit and UN Disaster Project. He's a filmmaker and a founder of the Youth for Planet Foundation, an NGO in Hamburg, but based out of Luxembourg, in Africa, in Asia, in America. You will see. Inshallah, if he comes, it would be great. Over again to you, Sam.
Well, the opportunity is for Farah and Eugen and Christian. Would you like to do so, Farah?
Yes, I'm Farah. I live here in Berlin, Germany. And Heiner is a companion since 30 years, as he already told you. And we worked on many projects and we're traveling a lot. And one of our projects is to promote Magic Roundtable, as other called it. And then we took this name. And well, and I was lucky to be with Heiner together in Budapest. It was 1996, and there we could meet John McConnell. And he was invited there together with other like Dalai Lama and Pierre Vilayat Inayat Khan, a Sufi teacher, and many others. And well, and therefore Heiner invited me. Maybe I know that you as a group are meeting a long time. Heiner is telling me sometimes about it. So wonderful to meet you for the first time. Over.
Eugen?
Yeah, okay. My name is Eugen Oettinger. I met quite a number of people in this group. I just see Barry here as well. Hi, Barry. And the background is, well, first of all, I'm German, live in the Netherlands, and had the opportunity to work near Berlin for a year recently, and the opportunity to meet Heiner also face-to-face a couple of times. I belong to the group of people expected to take high impact solutions, wherever they come from, science, the field doesn't matter, get them into the field, implemented and scaled up. But after participating at about 20 contributing, I should tell, with about 20 initiatives that almost all got stuck in the system, it was time to do something different and ask a question. Why on earth are these initiatives getting stuck in the system? And it turned out there were two fundamental questions. No, we could not find anyone working on it. The first one was, what do decision makers really need to make the problem-solving decisions? And the second one was, what do initiative owners, experts, project managers really need to get their solutions or to make their solutions executable, scalable, and durable at the system level? And when we couldn't find anybody addressing this, not in organizations, I'm sorry, also not in science, to the level we needed out in the field, we started to investigate and found pretty much, we believe, the causes. We found also solutions that delivered the needed results, where the long-lasting solutions failed. And very, very recently, actually about the last couple of weeks, we found something new as to why our communications result in too much of the same thinking, and people say, no, will not work either. And that's all coming together nicely at this point in time. So I was very, very pleased when I just heard Sam talking about scalable doesn't work. I think we have pretty much the knowledge brought together and is available in YouTube tutorials. What we are now working on is creating how should I say, an engagement loop, not just publishing something, but really an engagement loop to get people not just on board, but keep them asking hard to ignore questions in decision-making processes. And then there's more to it. I would be happy to share why today's communications is guaranteed to fail and what we can do about it. There's a way around it. And with that, I would leave it for now. And interest there, I'll be very pleased to go into more details later on or another time.
Danke. If you're up for it, I can see a lot of conversation there between us. Thank you. Christian, you're on mute.
You unmute. Well, welcome to you. Most of you, I don't know, just Heiner, since tens of years, so to speak. And he explained something about Delphi. I don't know what Delphi, what kind of bell is ringing in your memory if you hear the word Delphi. Because here, most people have no clue, because it will not be taught in schools. And that what triggered me was to give a balance to the body, to Olympia. Olympia has 1,000 years of history, as well as the Delphic games, and both of them were banned as heathen games in ancient time. And it took 1,500 years until the IOC was founded. And we know all what came about, what happened with the Olympic Games. And I thought, body is served enough. It's time to bring mind and spirit a floor to share and to empower, let's say, our education systems. So it's not so much a project, it's an initiative hoping which will survive me and will inspire future people, our grandchildren, seeing, let's say, that we are more or less a wise team of elderly people, caring, having lots of experience. For me, it's important to leave something behind. And I believe that arts and culture is more than singing, dancing, having fun. If we use arts and culture and education strategically, we might have more influence in peace, in changing targets, a little less selfish, because we all gain more if we share. And that's what I'm doing. We restructured the field of arts, how to create Delphic games, how to create competitions, in the arts. And finally, if we accomplished 7 Delphic games the last 30 years in 3 continents, and looking for companions keen to leave footprints behind and making more impact, leaving more impact to the young ones, because recognizing they're striving for why I'm here, what can I do, how I can take influence. And so with arts and culture, with a strategy in arts and culture, we might be more influential. And this is all about me at the very moment. I'm just 81 years young, so to speak, and hope to find those who continue what I've started 30 years ago. So thank you for listening.
Christian, that's awesome. You don't look a day over 80. Anyway, sorry. Hey, I said I would go last. I'm going to make it brief. I've been in Silicon Valley most of my professional life. I actually play the violin. I also have directed children's orchestras. I founded the Viennese Waltz Orchestra at Stanford way back decades ago. So I love the arts. I love music. We could go on and on about that also. And on the body side, Christian, I don't do as much as I should, but I have been doing Tai Chi now for about 20 years. So I really enjoy that aspect of mind-body discipline. And professionally, I'm a software industry, used to be engineer, but now, saddled with more responsibilities up until last year, which is when I left my last gig of 17 years. I had collaborated with Tammy Lee Meyer to create that proposal in response to the Swedish GCF Foundation. And we had said in that proposal that we want to listen and communicate and learn how to lean in better as people. And if we don't, we're still going to be subject to all of these disagreements and conflicts. And so we said, when the proposal went in, regardless of whether we actually won any of that grant, we were going to keep practicing what we actually wrote in the proposal. And that's why I've stayed committed to this for the 8 years that it's been going on so far. And so now, clearly, this is an opportunity to give Heiner the floor. And Heiner, I'm really excited that you've decided to put more energy back into Earth Day and those initiatives. So the floor is now yours.
Wow. Well, I now play the more serious guy. I did my diploma on ecological modeling, geoecology, astronomy, navigation, remote sensing, cadastre, all this 51 years ago. And I call myself an environment Heine or a geophysician, because we as technicians and engineers learn to be doing standardization, compatibility, and comparability, which is harmonization. And that was my project with the UN, to harmonize environmental data. And that I used before I was with United Nations development programs doing town and state planning. Then through this harmonization since '88, I was involved with the International Maze again. In between, I was a computer guy. So I coined the term infographics with IBM, was a lecturer for the Watson International Executive Briefing Center of the IBM in La Hulpe, which is south of Brussels, where Waterloo, the war took place. So you see, I've been really around, and I was looking with these computer companies who were first since '81. I was involved with them, doing vector graphics, then raster graphics, then data integration, then terminology research, learning to know the German starting the International General Research Unit of the UN and the translation unit. And the translation unit was even more interesting. And that connects me here in particular to the group, because when we have different sign systems, a sign is symbol, icon, and index. So many people don't make put so much thought into the problem of what are writing systems? What is the difference between a language based on metaphors or analogies, or has a writing systems, or like we know from Iraq, that there were in Babylon, there were the first forms, and then in Egypt, to have something like icons to be used. So it's going really, really into international knowledge processing. The International Society of Knowledge Organization, Mrs. Dahlberg, Farah learned to know her as well, was really an extraordinary lady who helped me to really go to what Jack just said, to Doug Engelbart. Also, Doug Engelbart connects us. He was this guy who started the mouse, the idea that in the Xerox labs and then SRI, where Jack was, it was able to do something which later gave the possibility to find Apple computers, because they integrate visual and alphanumeric and what other kinds of representations. So it has to do with databases, it has to do with repositories, and it's actually a very complicated, complex matter. Then I learned to know in the early 90s, FARA and the International Peace Universities. Before Club of Rome, I looked into the Methodenstreit when I did my diploma in 74. Why do these clubs clash? Because some think small and some think big. And why maybe through the Club of Budapest, the arts integration is there, that even women can take part in such elders clubs. And I think this is very important, because it should not be an in-group with groupthink, but really an integrated approach. And that led me to peacemaking, negotiations, dialogue, governance, policy making, because after Rio, all these preparations for Rio, International Space Year, that was also one of my presentation part, what I did with Sadia yesterday, to really say, suddenly we could see from afar the Earth. And what's happened if you have first a Russian satellite, and then you had suddenly that the Earth is just one pixel, one gray blue dot. Carl Sagan was writing that. And so this was done when I was in Pasadena then, 1990, 1991, to prepare Rio. There were a lot of science bodies. And so I learned all this academic noodle soup and this ivory towers of the academic university academy societies. And in between, I worked with a guy who is supposed to come in a moment, a filmmaker on youth projects. And so this involving the youth, to really empower youth, to help them think out of the box and fresh, but not forget the old thinking, but include the old and the new and the different modes is very, very central. So I think this Creativelo Jörg Altekruse developed is something like a media rickshaw. It has 3 wheels, And the children work with that and go to the villages, to the countryside, and interview the stakeholders, not the observers and the moderators or manipulators in democratic stakeholder dialogues and multi-track diplomacy and peacemaking, but really talking to the people who are holding the stake, who are Earth trustees and are really with their heart there and with their deep knowledge, so they can vote what they want to do. So anyway, this led me through Robert Jung to the futurists, to future studies, working with children, and then in vocational training environment with international youth organizations. So I've been really traveling widely, and the accident or the big surprise was that when I was in this United Nations Environmental Project Harmonization Office in Munich, I met the Countess Kienlin, Gräfin Kienlin, together with Gräfin Nora Herberstein from Vienna, from the castle. They were in the core team of knowing the old history of the Delphi and Olympic Games and the Greek tradition and how it linked through Alexander to Near East and Far East. So it's been really a very weird journey I've been doing. And I would like to cut here, but only tell you what is transcribed and with AI connected. Sam, can you make me host?
Okay. You can actually share anytime without being host, but I'll make you a host. I'll make you co-host. See, if I make you host, I lose the recording, so I'll make you co-host.
No, co-host is perfect. Actually, I was checking. We cannot show a video with all this peace bell ringing. We did March 20 for equinox. I wonder.
You can show a video, Heiner, if you have it.
Well, one thing after that. At the moment, I would like to show these slides. Can you see them?
Yes.
Okay. So I was with a very interesting young journalist and engineer in a session doing a rehearsal yesterday. Sam has met her, and I have met her together with Jörg Altekruse in this Use for Planet Earthbeat method in Dubai at the COP28 Conference of the Parties and not of the People. That's how I had summarized the climate summit. So she was one of the invited journalists doing interviews with all the gurus and all the youths and all the industry people and NGOs. And she was interviewing me, as you see here, on the slide here, for 1 hour, showing my background and what I learned and where I failed. It's all on YouTube. And we were playing yesterday with the cherry trees, because this Earth Day equinox, that's a Venero or spring equinox, is the original Earth Day conceived by John McConnell and with Margaret Mead and Robert Mueller, the Deputy Director General. They with UTANT were ringing the peace bell, and it's so many years ago, you wouldn't believe it. So I just have here the years. We are soon having 80 years the United Nations. And the Earth Day started with an idea of John McConnell, 1969, when he saw the first Sputnik, and he called it Star of Hope. because we can see from outside the Earth, and maybe that makes us a little bit more devote, a little bit more not so much ego driven. And so he introduced it, and they were ringing it, I think, first in 71, and in 89, before the Berlin Wall fell down, it was given by the Japanese, first in New York, but then in 89 already in East Germany. It was still DDR, German Democratic Republic. The Ossis, we call them, the Easterners. They had a bell in a public people's park in Friedrichshain. So
Okay.
I got with this peace bell
Okay.
done as a bell, normally in the first
Yeah.
20 years only giving at UN locations in New York, Geneva, then Paris, and having the same bell like in Japan for the cherry blossom. That's why I use the cherry blossom pictures there. It is a big history of thinking big and not thinking just for me, but thinking also the we and the global and the integral, and maybe you call it systemic or holistic, thinking as a whole thing together, which was the original idea John McConnell conceived. So anyway, this was this, and after this great interview she did with me, Sadia, what she did with me in Dubai 2 years ago, she made these questions here in 4 sections to really ask me, and you have the transcript by the computer later, what really made me tick and what were the defining moments of how to see and save the earth. And in German, Boden is earth, and the globe is also earth. So we have with Erde a term for the big and the small. So anyway, she did a great job. And the second was the discussion on what is it this Earth Day? Why do we have 2? Why do we celebrate now in 2 days? It's like Easter Tuesday, worldwide, an environmental Earth Day, which started later than McConnell, was a senator in San Francisco as an environmental Earth Day teach-in party. And it was very important to see environment because it was somehow forgotten. But in Rio, we had 3 columns. When conventions were formed in Rio 72, it was environmental, and it was biological and desertification. So 3 commissions, but we already said already in 72, and I think in 73, I gave a lecture for the director of UNEP who was in charge, that we have to look for common frames of references to know the data and have an index where they are, so to connect the science systems. I hear some extra noise, but I don't need it. So she, in the 3rd section, asked for this analog, digital, or Olympic, Delphic, exact sciences, exact arts, fine arts, this integrated approach. What is the symbolism of balance? How to get Vorstellungen und Einstellungen. So how we imagine it, how we think it is, and how we design and create futures. So she in the third session, looked into the integration aspects of harmonization, of bringing science, spirituality, activism, and all this together. And in the last section, which I liked so much, she really asked me to go into my deep reflections. What do we do with the marginalized communities, with the marginalized cultures? Because we had this dialogue among civilization. I think it was 2001. First thing Kofi Annan wanted to have in the UN, and it was published, but it's not available. But all the statements from the heads of states are sometimes different from the heads of states ruling the Security Council. So I've been always in this mess of fights. Who is truthful? Who is right? Which is a marginalized minority meaning? And what the big boys do against the small boys, like we already experienced in kindergarten. So anyway, I really urge you to have AI summarize our 30, 40 minutes discussion yesterday. And that would be the time where your Altekurs is supposed to come up. So we have, like in Dubai in 2023, we had the Futures Summit, and I was there the week before the climate negotiations to really discuss on the Millennium Project and all the World Future Studies Federation and all this science and policy body levels, the futures with S. So in the latest version, I just agreed with our colleague from India, Paul Singh, to write futures with an S. So it's actually supposed to be virtually as a hybrid event, I think the day after Earth Day, that would be Wednesday next week, but primarily going into youth projects worldwide. In India, I think 10,000 students from 20 universities in India are involved. Work in Africa, primarily Nigeria, and in America, primarily California, on having the youth design their own futures and learn to negotiate the various futures and not making war, but peace. And there we full cycle come back to the International Peace Universities and the original idea of the Delphi Games to have a period of not bodily expressions and not of war, but have a period of peace where through artistic expressions and performative expressions, we have a chance to go beyond this fighting and bodily being the first, second, or third, but learn how to make fusion between the arts and the ways we conceive and present and negotiate and go beyond the need to agree. So anyway, it's a full circle I've been doing. I had expected another gentleman here. He was the first director of the UN, and he's a neighbor here. So he went before Ernst Ulrich von Weizsäcker to the UN to be in charge of culture and bringing science, technology, and environment and all the sciences like health and whatever together. So this Klaus Heinrich Starke gave the talk at this Peace Bell in Berlin for the 50 years of the United Nations. And now it is the 80th years of the United Nations. And Klaus Heinrich, now after UNESCO, 10 years in Paris, always second liner, is now retired and living here in Berlin and at the Baltic Sea and doing all this Weimarer Dreieck or culture peace or Jean Hessel, these discussions with the religions and peace groups. So anyway, these two people, Jörg and Klaus Heinrich, I would have liked to have here. Klaus Heinrich has presented with the Berlin Peace Peace Bell organization all these documents, like he was presenting in New York and for the UN and in Paris for the UNESCO, all in written on his website. And there we do oral history, try to learn from the old and bring it to the new. So anyway, this was a really full circle of my drives, what keeps me ticking. And I don't know how much time went on, but I pass the token to Sam.
Thank you. Let's see. Clearly, you covered a lot of ground. I think it would be fascinating to actually hear the actual interview because I think you went very quickly through some of these points. It'd be good to hear you, really express it fully without feeling that stress of time. Let me open it up to the floor. Any questions anyone has for Heiner? If not, let me start. I think you used a phrase which I thought was rather interesting. You said artistic and performative expression beyond the need to agree. I thought that was an interesting point. What do you think is good or bad about the need to agree?
I did not get the end of the question.
So, wenn du dich nicht meldest, musst du
Ja.
tasten.
Christian, I think your microphone is up. Okay.
Heiner, sorry, but I have to leave. I have a guest received now in the office. So apology. Thank you for listening, being patient, and all the best to you and happy Eastern to each of you. All the best. Bye-bye.
So Heiner, did you get my question or not?
No.
I was remarking on your phrase, going beyond the need to agree. And I thought it might be good to lean into that for a few more sentences.
Well, it's actually a term I borrowed, like I borrow much from two persons. One is Robert Jung, this futurist, and the other is Anthony Judge. And with him in the Bohm dialogues and in the open space technology, what I do with FARA and what we call as a group for futures or open forum, we look into negotiations, into finding out what is possible. And this has much to do with peacemaking, like this 21st century agora, the structured dialogic design, where Alexander Christakis and the founders of the original Club of Rome looked into participatory, normative, and prognostic futures, and not just technological modeling and simulations, but really finding the terms and the ends. So anyway, this is another very big story where Farah is a moderator and a journalist and editor. She's looking into word watching. And that is very difficult. And that is part of this group. What do I mean by a certain word in a certain context? So this American Indian opportunities and then the Maori Indian opportunities with our projects on structured dialogic design and the United Nations Democracy Fund, is really looking into that the group negotiates the deep drivers and the blind spots and really going to the leverage points, that this comes to all together. And they're the mastermind behind. And there I borrowed from Tony Judge with his exercises in Rio to have something like Bohm dialogues. And then we did do time credit token negotiations. This is all very much based on what we call Seeds of Change, 4 weeks at the International Peace University. So this all links together, and there my elder brother, Tony Judge, he is now retired, not living in Brussels at the Union of International Associations anymore, but he's an Australian born in Cairo and is now back in Australia. He was really, as a director of the Union of International Association, knowing about these problems. We spoke about, in this group, about McLuhan and Paul Audlett. He was a founder of the Union of International Associations, UIA, and they started 60 years before the UN. So you see, Völkerbund, it's again much history about, and we have to look as a polyhistor and not just as a polymath in more than I think I know, and I know what you mean, and then you get a kick. So anyway, this was a high praise to Anthony Judge, who had very different times and difficult times as the chair of the World Problems and Human Potential Encyclopedias, or Action Option Strategies Encyclopedias, or then we did this Encyclopedia of Systems and Cybernetics, trying to find the terms, what they really mean, in which context, and what are synonyms and what are antonyms. So anyway, you can go in every depth, and I cannot do it alone. We have to do it together. And that's why we have not only Earth Day, but harmonization and peacemaking.
So
Over.
I think I understood a lot of what you said, and I still have trouble relating that to this phrase, the need to agree. I don't see the connection there yet. But anybody else can ask questions also. I'm just occupying the space while people are formulating their questions. Barry.
Well, let me say to this need to agree, because you have a stumbling block there. If you go into in groups of stakeholders, what are the influences? Drives A, B, or B, A, or apple, pears, and bananas, ananas? Then you see the context, and then you find maybe a majority or a supermajority, or you see why you can't agree, because you're standing here and not there, and you have this glasses or that lens, and you have a different frame of references, that this deep negotiations in structured dialogic design, what I did with Farah and LaDonna Harris, the chief of the American Indian, American Opportunities, making peace between American Indian tribes, and they making alliances against the headquarters in Washington, for example. There you see that through these deep negotiations, like in peacemaking, like we presently have going on, they just make a caravan doing the same like was done before in the Vienna talks and in Osnabrück and Münster after the 30 years war in Europe. It needs a lot of work. It cannot be done dominus vocat and top down. It has to be done really like, well, I don't agree with you, but I want to agree with you, and I understand, and I can live with it. And so if I can live with it, then it's beyond this urge, I must be right and you are wrong and I kill you or so.
Okay, thank you for that. I know Eric and Eugen have their hands up. Eric?
Yeah, hi. So I'm curious what kind of feedback you've gotten from young people that you work with, if you're actually connecting with them, and if there are other people who can better connect with the younger generations, thinking of, like someone in the Greta Thunberg.
Well, I met Greta and her father when she was coming out at the climate negotiations in Katowice. This is, I think, now 12 years ago. And this Jörg Altekruse, again, this elephant in the room who is not there, he works with youth to really have them work together and design bicycles together and learn to make interviews and to become filmmakers, learn about the media, cross media, multimedia, about these different ways of cultural expressions, and working with the International Youth Community Services, which was with Sühnezeichen and other forms of vocational training done in Germany with international traveling and bringing young people together to build maybe or rebuild an old monastery, or do an ecological voluntary year, or a social year, or a cultural year, and or a year in rebuilding old monasteries or old places or old parks, old paradises. So I worked, Farah knows these people, internationale Jugendgemeinschaftsdienste, International Youth Community Services. The youth got the idea from the Danish, and they took it on because they all had Nazi blockheaded teachers. And so they said, we want to have projects and try through doing what makes us tick. Do we want, by rebuilding and reconstruction, do we want to become an architect, an engineer, an archivist, a communicator, a cook, or whatever you do in construction? So I was with these youth groups very much letting go and being an advisor and not a berater. Berater is a German word like scolder, scolderer. In German, it means Berater, which means consultant. But when I wrote on my visiting card, Berater, they all said, are you mad at us? We don't want to be scolded and then beaten like in school. So anyway, there is a lot of history about this community work, and having seen after Rio in my work since 93 then, also at all this national and international groups, that the civil society is alone. They are absolutely underfunded. They have different languages. They have different whatever. That I was just like a, how do you say, a traveler, a nomad, trying and traveling a lot all over the planet to see that we have to walk the talk. It is all this wording, and I'm right is not the right thing. So give young people like Fridays for Futures with Greta, or we have now Science for Futures and Architect for Futures. We have the need to bring that together and letting children make their own mistakes and just try to guide when asked is probably the approach I'm pushing here. And I was pushing very much with youth organizations in civil society out of Toronto. I was very much with Julia Moten-Marr in Toronto. She is a dame in the British Empire, an Australian going to Canada, marrying a military guy. To really do school peace gardens. So in all this environment, I looked for hands-on and not this academic sectarianism of science.
Eric, did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Eugen.
Yeah, with regard to need to agree or not to agree, I would like to add something that is hitting us out in the field. When we have impactful solutions across the board, we are expected to agree to fundamental ways of thinking. And that's not negotiable at this time. We need to agree to provide hard data. But as a mathematician, one of the first things I learned out in the business was that is impossible when things get complex. And this situation was accepted in the old 80s, in the old days, in the 80s, in the 90s. We made business cases based on things that were not expressible in exact ways. Like if you don't stop this development, things will become unmanageable. The cost will go through the roof. It was simply accepted by management. And then came this new thinking, which said, we are now making decisions, or we want to improve the reliability of decisions by using hard facts, by getting things through processes, linear processes. Great stuff when it's about factory work, when it's about transferring money from one bank account to something else, but a disaster when it's complex, when the environment changes quicker than the processes can be updated, when it cannot be expressed in hard ways, but hits the bonuses of medium to higher level management. So the one thing we learned back then is we need to reintroduce the acceptance of how should I say, patterns rather than hard information. We need innovation processes, research models able to really handle complex systems, complex situations. It's all there. That's not the issue. It just doesn't get through the current system because these things are so far out of the box that it is impossible to agree with the current thinking and the current processes and requirements. So the intervention here, I would argue, needs to be a little bit deeper in the system. First, open the door to a different thinking. Then we can do changes at the higher system. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I was with Eugen in this group starting the laws of nature. And we definitely agree there's natural sciences, life sciences, and humanities. And they have a totally different reference. And the way to present, and also across the scales, it's so different. And how we approach it through the times, through cultures, is something like a perplexing issue. And to come to new paradigms, we called it a meta paradigm or a cognitive panorama, to see from different perspectives, like in the meso, or in the micro, or in the macro scales. Again, the fields of references are different. And so it is very hard without contextualization and concretization to come to commons. And that is actually what this issues between Club of Rome and Club of Budapest is about. Can we find tolerance and harmonization, comparability and not compatibility, to really go with the different granularities and the different ways of cultural expressions or scientific expression to come to, oh, this is how you mean it. This is how you stand. This is the lens you are using. So you see, we can work on that, and we are just in the middle of doing that. And I had, after this German Chancery exhibition, Global Change, Challenges to Science and Politics, 1990, was the White House conference, the idea, or I was building it as an exposition place, to really have a cognitive reference space. And I called it Rubik's Cube of Ecology, where we built in a cognitive space, virtual augmented space, we can call it nowadays, multidimensionally, what are the issues? Is it life sciences, or is it natural sciences, or is it humanities? Is it in the micro or macro scale, what we later called local? When I introduced that to the youth, 93, with all the futurists, and Benoit Mandelbrot, when we discussed chaos theory and fractals and all this, that the children, coming back to you, Eric, were taking it on. They said, what crazy language do you use? House and terminology and compatibility. You have a house of eyes. Worm's eye, you just see like a worm with a tunnel view, and a fish eye, a bird's eye, a group eye, a generational eye, a cultural eye. So they really found how they concretely built it. So I'm speaking about general model theory, not just general system theory. They imagined like they built in the sandbox and learn like travelers from one country to the next, from one subject to the next, like the scholars, how you learned in the past als Geselle, not being a Meister, a master yet, but a Geselle, and be on the same eye level, like the old scientists in Germany said in Enlightenment, that we have to be moderate, and not one is the boss and one is the leader, but we do the rotation. So anyway, this new thinking, this out of the box thinking, this paradigm mapping, this is all presented, and most of that are presented in the early 90s, is not taken up. This is why we still are in our terminology, umbrella terms, vague subject terms, issues, that we don't question what is meant. And so, Eugen, I'm fully with you. We can there learn a lot from nature, and then really take our own viewpoint out and try to solve it by getting away from the me, I.
Okay. Thanks, Heiner. I'm just wondering whether we should go on this, but I think I'll leave this for now. It's Heiner's and Sam's session.
Anyone else? Okay, then I do have a piece of feedback. So I think I understand this phrase, need to agree better, Heiner. And I think that what you're recognizing is pointing out the mutual sense-making, the mutual deep understanding that is required before an agreement makes sense. So I don't think it's eliminating a need to agree. I think it's recognizing that much has to happen before you agree. So that's what I'm hearing.
Okay, I'm just saying beyond the need to agree. It is perfect if we can have love, peace, and apple pie. But even when I cannot agree, can I still live with it and not fight? So it's very much on happiness and suffering, what we had in earlier sessions. How do we go to decision making and policy and governance issues? And how do we come to multi-track diplomacy, other forms of just insider negotiations, two parties, and all the other people are not invited.
Okay, so I'm going to say my piece just this way, very brief. Agreement is not binary. Because it always includes the context, which includes multi-levels of thinking, perspectives, models, subsystems, theories, etc. So at some point, you had mentioned peace, love, apple pie, etc. Okay, so that's a very high level thing. Most people can probably say we want peace. I wouldn't say 100%, okay? But as you get deeper and deeper and deeper into what that means, there's clearly other considerations, and we could take it to arbitrary levels of detail. So I would say agreement up to a certain point is likely. Agreement beyond a certain point requires that deep negotiation. So that's what I mean when I say agreement is not binary. Over. Other thoughts? Other questions? Eric.
Hi. So one principle from Engelbart is that the human systems and the tool systems need to evolve together. And now we have AI, which is just another tool, and we're just beginning to figure out how to use it. And it's a question for the future. These kids are going to grow up naturally using AI for everything. And how can we look forward using the potential of AI properly? Because these kids are growing with tons of distractions. I was just with a 2-year-old and a new baby, and I see all the distractions they're going to grow up with. So, yeah, and we have objectives like first introducing these kids to the global problems gradually, which they'll get in school, but then where are they going to find their role? And then, so like the education system is another tool which needs a lot of reform, but it's happening in pockets, I believe. So, like let's just think about how do we evolve the human systems so we could first relate to each other and then apply the tools. Any thoughts on that?
Well, you see, there are patterns, there are scales, there are proportions, and there are consequences. And we have to see from which basis a reasoning can take place. I was with Joshua discussing a couple of years ago BART, the Google AI, which is now called Genesis. And I discussed intensively with Bart. And definitely, when I showed him that this alphanumeric reasoning based on a science system noodle soup cannot know something which is not represented. So there are cultural expressions according to UNESCO, which means artistic expressions like we had just a moment ago with Christian. How do you really have a negotiation in ballet or opera performances? if this mathematical patterns are just based on certain words, then these words can be seen in their context, and maybe there's an extrapolation that you say I don't have the word in English. It's called trend extrapolation. That you have, when you don't have the core data, or the data are not in your system. We had that with Barry before, but Barry is not here anymore. Oh no, he is here. It's what is in Wikipedia. If it's not in Wikipedia, an AI system cannot base in that. And the crucial thing is that when there are Terminator wars, that certain people, certain inventions, certain visions, imaginations, inventions are not accepted and are always deleted in such an Wikipedia, then how can something new coming out of the smallest common denominator, which is hate? Creativity like Einstein or big inventors, they were out of the box. They were embodied thinkers. That's why we've spoken about an embodied covenant in interreligious environments. So the problem is that we are on the edge to include also the connection to images. But when we present something, then we have to see, is it coded or not coded? Is it known? Is it unknown? Or is it unknowable? And we recently had a very interesting group in a Salon Noir in Berlin on how to teach the unknowable. That's a very tricky question. So the unknown is fine, but the unknowable, that means that you go through pattern matching and then statistical analysis to a probability of what would be the next thing. It is fantastic to really have a system make a nice image or a creative new picture, but to really bring the cultural expressions and the ways to represent and conceive together, I think it's a long way. And I don't see yet how this can be merged together, that something positive, peacemaking, happiness can evolve, and not just the common denominator, hate and fight. Sorry, it was a red herring. And I have to cut the sun out. It's always disturbing me a little bit, but I can listen.
Yeah, thank you.
Other connections?
Perhaps I can add something to what Heiner just said. That's based on the latest developments in AI. First of all, when I tried ChatGPT, it came forward with too much of the same thinking. They created the problems. This is just trained in the thinking that exists today. But then somebody pointed me to a certain practice, and big surprise, ChatGPT came forward with surprising answers. And I was actually able to lead it a little bit to include a different thinking. Yeah. The other big thing is, and that's coming from one of the big AI gurus, Geoffrey Hinton, it's not about statistics anymore. or not alone about statistics anymore. The latest development in AI that's done by Google is without statistics, they don't know how the AI works. And that's really frightening to him because he doesn't know how to prevent bad behavior. Yeah, that's where things are today, I'm afraid. So much to that.
You can order. Yeah, go ahead, Heiner.
Okay. You see, I recently had a very fantastic realization. I found out that through AI, we can do what a polyhisto is doing, having a whole grid and seeing through the volumes some aspects we humans normally in our hamster wheel cannot see. To give you the example, there is the definition what is a celebrity and what is a vanity. And if you don't fit into the box, then you are a vanity. But what Google was doing with something close to BART was identifying public figures. So these are the stars which are known, which are in television and everywhere. And there are the ego-driven vanities. In German, it's called Selbstbeweihräucherung. And there are the public figures nobody can nominate anyone to. The system itself having a broader view on the diversity. It is unity in diversity we discussed in dialogue among civilizations with all the heads of states, is able to see through an exterior viewpoint or a higher viewpoint, see something different, what you with your individual capacity being restricted to your life, to your experiences and learnings cannot have. So you see this sagacious knowledge, the African cultures are calling it, this looking from a wise elder perspective, cultural perspective. Farah is translating much about knowledge schools like Sufism. But with the International Peace University, we learned what she studied as a social scientist on syncretism, how to bring something incompatible together, how to see something new arising when Africa religion and Catholic religion in Brazil, and they have then Umbanda and other energies and other cosmologies, other like astronomical system, astrological system, have a fusion of something. And I think this fusion of something out of a higher self, I don't know if that is a good word, can maybe form something new. And maybe this reasoning and then finding out totally so many different puzzle pieces can create something which is more wise. And then it's only the question, according to Kant, for whom? Who is benefiting? And if such a system in the end says, this is all perfect, but the only thing what we don't need is humankind. They are just as elbow guys, the fighters. We have the broader perspective of all living things. So the earth has a disease that is mankind. And so maybe that is the solution out of that higher perspective. I was just rambling on. I don't know if that makes really sense.
John?
Sorry, did you say many?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. The acoustics were a little off. Uh, this is a great call. There's just such a remarkable amount of mm, a remarkable number of concepts being flung about here. It's it's really very impressive. Um, uh, First, I would like to just remark that offer the perspective that the current LLM models are in effect lossy compressions of what it is that humans have published onto the web, right? It's a lossy compression, and so the evidential sources, to the extent that there is any management of evidence on the internet, um, are squashed out of that's one of the things that gets lost in the current LLM embodiment. The current embodiment of artificial intelligence. But as I'm hearing some of us noting, it's an already an error for us to imagine that the way that the bleeding edge of AI as commercially delivered is limited to the LLM modality. That's There are other technologies, architectural styles that are being brought to bear. So it is already as we're I believe Eugen quoted Hinton as remarking that we can no longer reason really about effectively about how it is that the oracular pronouncements of AIs are actually grounded or generated. And so my point in mentioning this is to emphasize how it is that there's a dramatic distinction between a categorical distinction between how it is that humans form our understandings and how we can uh, have how we need to have a different kind of respect for how it is that human cognition functions versus how we weigh and lend merit to the and credence to the voices of AI. So I would suggest that we should continue to hold human voices in a higher regard than we hold the voices of AI. But we should value them especially because humans share some universalities. We have a need for the sky to remain blue and water to be safe to drink and the future be a safe and wonderful place for babies. And artificial intelligences have absolutely no such requirements at all. And um, so I would submit that what we need to focus on collectively, as humans, but in this group and in the shells of community that we operate in, that what we should be focusing on is figuring out how to support the an explosion of coherence in how it is that human beings manage to make sense of things together and how we manage to uh, plan and act together. Um, so that's the nature of the work that I'm doing for sure is collaborating as I might, but also architecting and building information systems and software systems to augment where humans need augmentation, our capacity to cohere in our sense making together. Over. Another remark is that this this constellation of themes that have been touched on in this call, this constellation is so vast and so ramified that that it's clearly beyond the comprehension of any one, right? This mass of issues is so vast and has so many facets that it's clearly beyond beyond the capacity of any individual to have grasp of it. And so we're screamingly in need of dramatically effective tool support for our collective process of wrapping our arms around this mass of potentials and challenges so that we might treat it effectively. And so to summarize, we've got two processes going on in the world as I see it. One is this exponentiating elaboration of what is generally referred to as the singularity, but that I would like to emphasize is the technological singularity. It's the explosion into order of software and hardware technologies. But the other thing that is going on is a more fragile, humane explosion into order, and that is the human singularity. And I think that that's where our hopes and future lie. Is in that elaboration.
Sean, I see that you're speaking about augmenting the human intellect and how to do that. That is for me this real challenge. We tried with the European Commission on a humane information society, and I came to the conclusion that we need a merger of general system theory with all their approaches and general model theory, Herbert Stachowiak, taking embodied models to really augment the human intellect to make sure that all senses are involved, that it is not just smelling and touching and hearing and seeing, but that this embodiment in the emptiness and fullness of space, so multidimensionally, like the Indian philosophical traditions, is helping the human mind to really have another broader solution space when the problem spaces are killing us.
I'm going to gently interject and ask Sean. Sean, do you feel that you were heard and understood?
Yes, I'd like to make one further remark, if I may, and that is that it's sense that we need a successor to the World Wide Web. That successor, we could call it the merged mental model, where what it is, if what the World Wide Web is the collection of speech acts by which we attempt to inform and persuade one another, then the merged mental model is instead then our collectively curated merger of our necessarily distinct and disagreeing perspectives and understandings. And that is necessarily a graph theoretic construct as opposed to a textual construct. And so I would submit that's the nature of solution to this world problematique and to this software architectural challenge, is that we need to build that successor to the World Wide Web, which is which holds outside of our individual meat brains the fusion of our understandings, models of the world, agendae, perspectives, worldviews, thinking strategies, values, etc., expressible in a model theoretic modality that means that the ideas can have a life outside of their activity in our brains. Over.
This is
Also
actually,
make sure, hey, Heiner.
this is actually what I meant. You see, the hologram is something which is more dimensional than even your graph theoretical representations. The way is what is how expressed, and how does smell and all this sensual information. We spoke with John Gebse about through the senses to the meaning. In German, we can say durch die Sinne zum Sinn. This was John Gebse. So anyway, that is something where we really have to see how wide is our definition and solution space expanding. And there, all our history on the holographic representations and how multidimensionally actually the brain works, it is not just a network, line, and graph theoretical approach, in my humble opinion.
I agree.
An acknowledgement of Sean's, and I admit I'm going out of order here, okay? But an acknowledgement of what Sean was saying about the richness and multiplicity of ideas here. I think in this particular session, it would be probably something I would recommend that we allow 2, 3, 4 seconds or whatever after the previous speaker has spoken to really see whether we've digested and to see whether the speaker has really finished their statement. Okay, because there's so much here that we really want to follow up with. So I'm of the opinion that sometimes these responses come through so quickly that we're not yet able to digest something before the next contribution happens. Thank you.
Well, I'd also like to mention that we have video recordings now. It is possible to go back and revisit, and I need to do that to things that I missed. I want to just share something that happened to me this past week. I visited a natural history museum in Chicago, and it had an emotional impact on me because you could clearly see history of life on Earth and in many different ways. And there were Native American exhibits which had to be covered up because there are disputes over the rights and how these objects were acquired. And just knowing that there is a process in place to remedy the sins of the past, it's encouraging, also disturbing, and it also makes me reflect on my personal lifestyle and how the privileges I have been afforded. And it's really very provocative. So I visited several different museums and I got that same message in several places. So I just wanted to throw that out there. There's a human side. There are ways that places like that can evoke this human understanding that's needed by a lot. So it's not just technology. Thanks.
Morgan?
Yeah, I found this very, very interesting, especially what Sean brought in, also is close to my heart. I want to add something there on how to merge mental models. I've heard now a couple of statements that these days we call loaded expressions. Loaded expressions, by this I mean that's word expressions that are used within a group. Within a group, within similar thinkers, people can be brought on board with these expressions. But as soon as we need to get others on board, which is always the case with the big problems, they create reactions like too much of the same thinking, won't work, and withdraw. And there are other ways that we found. First of all, Heiner mentioned already the word polymath. Polymath is a different way of thinking. What do we do today when things are complex? We break them into parts, have only time and resources for 2 or 3 parts, and the interesting solutions outside these parts are missed. Standard situation in complex environments. What do we do with a polymathic approach? What have Newton, Einstein, Darwin done? If we ignore the mathematics for a moment, go out of the box, go to the system level right away, and seek the simple solutions. And the key here is not in mathematics, we all know how that works, but the key here with complex problems is when it's complex, mathematics doesn't work, clear definitions don't work, so we need to use patterns, we need to use sentences like Darwin did. Yeah. And these actually allowed us to find a lot of deep insights with our initiatives and made it possible to get far beyond what we had before. All happened in just recent 2 to 3 years. Actually, I had the opportunity when I was near Berlin to apply this, and to my big surprise, it worked amazingly well. Started with listening what people really needed to do their jobs, to do not come in with something teaching, here's my model, but go back and trying to understand what is the current situation, a specific situation, and seek at the system level what has worked, and bring those bits and pieces in. Ask the people, is that relevant for your situation? Then can be brought in. But if they get the feeling, oh, there's an external consultant again, that happened in the beginning, then it's end of the discussion. But I didn't bring in this loaded expressions just to give you an example. Instead, I asked, what do you need? And that opened the door and it was an amazing, successful project. And with that, I want to leave it with that.
I would love to go for another couple hours with you, Jorgen. But this next couple of minutes for me, and I admit it's not going to be 20 seconds, may be my last statement for today. And I'll be surprised, actually, if anyone agrees with it. So I'm going to tell a story about, well, I'm going to first ask a question. What is the purpose of a worm's life? Is it the worm's objective to survive? What is the purpose of a firefly's life? A firefly lives for less than a day. What can a firefly accomplish in a day? And if you can understand what happens, then you can look at the larger context. Maybe it's the survival of the worm species. Maybe it's the survival of the firefly species, which, as Barry notes, worms help create arable soil. So in this ecosystem of species, we can understand one way to interpret a worm's life. But does the worm have that understanding? I would posit no. So if you take a look at what sustains a particular organism, 80 or 90, arguably more, % of the energy processed by that organism is just bare survival. A small percentage of it goes towards an actionable purpose, whether it's digging through soil, whether it's, lighting up their butt, whether it's whatever. So if you apply these questions to a human, what is the purpose of a human's life? Are we able to contemplate our own purpose? Or do we interpret it only in the context, which is obviously true, of our own understanding? So if you look at the energy consumed by a human, arguably 80 to 95% of it is just keeping this body going. And a small percentage of it is fed to this thing called the brain, which can conceive of new actions, new outcomes, new models, language, communication, engineering, poetry, music. But the rest of it is just oriented towards keeping this brain alive. That's one way of interpreting it. So if you look at the efficiency of energy usage, it's relatively low. But compare that to a worm. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? So what is the purpose of the human species? If you take a look at what the Library of Alexandria was trying to preserve, it was trying to preserve the accumulated human knowledge up till that point. If you take a look at what we're trying to preserve, it's trying to preserve the accumulated human knowledge up to this point. But how efficient is it? Now, you could look at AI as a very small caricature of human intelligence. But let me remind us, human brains have been evolving for millions of years. AI has only been evolving for arguably 60 or 70 years. This is still very nascent time in AI. So if you look at AI as part of the evolution of intelligence, of history, you could say, where does it fall in terms of using energy efficiently or effectively to create new models, to create new objectives, to create new possibilities for the future? And I would argue, and I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying it's useful to contemplate the question, are humans the best way to do it? I would say that if you take a look at beyond the human centricity of what we've been talking about, you could say, well, the Earth needs to survive. And then you could come back with why. There's trillions and trillions of stars and that many more of planets. So you could say we're an experiment in how well we can create and sustain intelligence. Because the accompanying idea is if you take knowledge and scratch it onto a piece of parchment, it lasts not forever. It lasts maybe 1,000 years, if it's going well. If you put it into granite, we can imagine that it lasts even longer than that, perhaps 10,000, 100,000 years. Do you know, and according to energy analysis and studies, what is the best encoding of information and knowledge? Does anybody have a clue? To my knowledge, the most stable form, more stable than granite, more stable than parchment, more stable than electrons. Sean, you're about to say?
Is it that laser etching in glass
No,
inside the glass bodies?
no,
No.
it's DNA. DNA is very, very stable. So what I'm actually positing is that if you take a look at the grand experiment that is the universe, perhaps it's the intelligence that any species can come up with, not the species itself, that is what the universe is trying to create. So I would argue away from such human centricity, not that humans aren't valuable, not that we can't have major impact on the sustenance of the planet. Indeed, I would still say that's very, very necessary. But I would think our perspective can be blown if we think in these terms of what we are compared to worms, of what we are compared to fireflies, and what we could be another 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million years from now, if any of us survive. Now, on trillions of other planets, the same thing is going on. So the question is there going to be one that sustains, or are we going to be just like many other civilizations, which we can even count on our own hands and fingers? They come, have a flame, burn out, and die. So those are the questions I would leave us with and leave this session with. And thanks for listening. Over.
I would submit that for us to be worth living with as a species, we need to figure out how to coexist among ourselves as humans. Humanity needs to solve the human-human alignment problem. And I would submit that that's a precursor even for us being able to figure out the AI alignment problem. So AI is emerging, and at some point it will surpass us in its creativity and depth and creativity and perspective and so on, right? It's doing that now, right? But for us to be safe to coexist with AI, we need to figure out how to coexist with one another. And so, and in that same maximally expansive way, I would submit, Sam, that for us to be able to for memory of the human experience, for integration of the human experience into the universal potential that Sam is gesturing at, we need to figure out how we or can coexist, can are worth persisting into the future. Otherwise, galactic society would have to choose to exterminate us as a pest if we don't figure out how to do that. And we're going through that same issue right now with AI. Where as nation states and corporations are pursuing AI heedlessly of its hazard in the context of the logic of mutual assured destruction, because we still haven't figured out how to coexist with one another. Over.
Yeah. I'm pointing to that as that we have a chance to level up if we have any desire to sustain beyond the next couple of decades. And you are indicating that as well. And Heiner is correct in pointing out we are a cancer on this planet. We haven't even recognized it. Do cancer cells in our bodies recognize that they're harming the body? No, they're just thriving. They're eating up the resources of that body, that organism that it's infesting, just like we're doing to the planet. And if we don't learn to do better, we're going to kill ourselves by that cancerous behavior. So Heiner, I understand we've gotten far from your original purpose of this particular session. I do think it's going to be great if we can all get that interview link and review it later. I just wanted to see if you got out of this session what you wanted to get out of this session.
I would like to say I like it very much. It is really on the meta level. And I am struggling very much with this second, third, fourth order questions. You see, for me, Eric Jansch with biocybernetics, and then they are discussing how they include the cultural cybernetics. It is something what we humans are able to, and how much this cyborg, he was the name of this futurist novels like Perry Rhodan and Randark, is allowing us to really do the bigger, and we cannot even express. And then we are coming into the realm of the wise people. And I just want to mention three names and then close. You see, it was Eric Jansch who did it all for the Club of Rome and really get the compass and really have humanity and the living things involved. And it was Smuts, Jan Christian Smuts, the people from South Africa say, was the real inventor of holism. Arthur Koestler just took it up. So he was looking into happiness and suffering, panethic society. So this is very, very important for me to really show that the only thing which is not limited is our imagination. And this is our USP, our uniqueness we can bring to the table. And how to do it? Jörg Altekruse was shortly in the room, but I texted him, maybe we cannot start again and make another 2 hours on how to do it with young people and to really make them strong and thriving and driving. I'm, in a nutshell, very happy. Sam, I will send you the whole thing, what the AI companion has been doing for us. And then you don't need the pictures, but you get the whole file and you do with it what you want to do.
I'll do it with it what I can. We'll see. This unlimited nature of imagination is another good favorite topic of mine. I'm not sure it's limitless. But hey, in all my entire life, Heiner, no one else has ever mentioned Perry Rhodan.
And you ran into well, Dark Vader, you did, but beside Perry Rhodan, it was Randark. He came a little later after Perry Rhodan, and he was this really crazy, like Einstein always said. Only through the Bernsteinsche Volksbücher I learned to struggle with the impossible questions. So I have a whole essay and a presentation on what Einstein said on his dying bed, on where he really got his kick through embodiment. But I think we are really far beyond the second time, top of the hour. And we didn't hear from Farah yet.
Yeah, I'd like to invite everyone to, if they have, share closing thoughts, closing statements, closing questions.
Well, I just came from a retreat, so I'm in a listening mode. So I thank you very much. It was very interesting. I got some glimpses of insight in what you are involved in and thinking about and feeling about. So thank you very much. Maybe another time. Bye.
Thank you.
Barry was silent all the time. How come, Barry?
Because whenever I have a thought, I just put it into the chat in text, and that's where it is. You can find it all in the chat.
I didn't have time at all to look into the chat, and there are dozens and dozens of chat messages. Incredible, Barry.
Well, not that many for me, just a handful. It could all be probably read out loud in less than a minute or two.
Yeah. AI Companion will allow us to also retrieve the chats.
Yeah, I think it would be good to take some time to reflect on this, to watch it again when it's available, and then personally, we each see where we fit in, what resonates with each of us. I think that's the next step.
We will close if no more additional remarks. I'll wait about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I'm looking forward indeed to where this might bring us. And by the looks of it, we may have something of high interest here.
Eugen, let me just say, I would be curious to probe the levels of your discomfort.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
I'd just like to mention that Sam has created what he calls a CCC, commitment to collaboration, and that is very useful when two people or more decide to collaborate on ideas together. So just throwing that out as a process for people to connect going forward.
CCC stands for Communication and Commitment to Collaborate. And it's basically a one-sided memorandum of understanding. It's basically saying, I think we can do X. Hopefully you can respond with Y. Hopefully they're aligned, basically. I'll wait another 10 seconds. You know, the old internet RFC protocol, wait 2 weeks. If no response, shut it down.
You have to wait for the avian protocol, for the pigeon to come.
1001, 1002. Okay, thank you all. I think that's it for today. All right.
That's lovely.